Hey, Marshall. Yes, Mr. Soros? I've been thinking recently. I'm super wealthy, as you know, a billionaire. And I've been thinking I want to expand my power structure. I want to exert totalitarian control over the entire damn Western world. How exactly do you intend to do that, sir? I mean, that's going to be very difficult. What would that be, Marshall? I don't see how hard it could be. Well, you see, sir, the European people and the American people, all the members of the Western world, they are very proud of their culture, and they really love it, and I really doubt that they would be willing to give it up to a totalitarian dictatorship, to be honest with you, Mr. Soros. So, I think your so-called dreams may be a bit more difficult to achieve than you initially thought. I'll be damned, you're right, Marshall. Well, I think we should make ourselves a little plan. God, I love my tobacco from slave labor in Africa. I've been thinking, maybe we should hire some social Marxists, cultural Marxists, like those dumbass feminists, or maybe those weird social justice warriors, or whatever you call them. Maybe we should ask those guys to try and demoralize the West. Bring the birth rate down by discriminating against men. Maybe we should leave that to the feminists and cause racial division, like between black people and white people. I actually think that would be the perfect idea, Marshall. I mean, it would cripple the West, and then it would be left open to enormous numbers of Muslims. Muslims we can easily manipulate. And besides, who doesn't like cheap labor? Am I right, Marshall? Actually, sir, that's not too bad of an idea. I mean, the West would be significantly damaged by this, weakened enough to leave it open to a much more primitive and savage culture that can be much more easily manipulated. Actually, I think that would be the perfect idea in executing your so-called plan for the West. Excellent, Marshall. We can get started right now. I'm a billionaire, and I don't like waiting. Get Big Red on the phone. What is up, everybody? My name is Pioneer Productions, and today I will be making a video about globalism, the very system that is trying to bring down the Western world and the First World, which is pretty much one and the same thing. So, as you know, I did stall a bit since my last video. It's been about 2 weeks, and I highly apologize for that. But don't worry, I've made up for it, for I have released this video about globalism, and I truly hope that you enjoy it. So, I suggest we get started right now. So, globalism is an ideology, such as the ideology of, democracy or capitalism. This ideology is that the world should become more interconnected through trade and economic cooperation. So, overall, a very good ideology. It pushes for cooperation between countries, it pushes for interconnectedness, that sort of very good stuff. But, unfortunately, just like other ideologies like communism, it doesn't always work out well. Unfortunately for globalism, just like what happened to communism, it's a good ideology that is being corrupted by its followers. What's happened to globalism, it's been hijacked by these selfish billionaires. And I'm not saying this because I hate capitalism. I love capitalism. But these particular billionaires are complete and total idiots and psychopaths who are only greedy for power. And one of them is George Soros, but I won't be mentioning him specifically. I'm just going to be talking about globalists in general. And I believe we should get started by what's happened very recently, particularly in Europe and America. So I'm pretty sure you've all seen the Hunter Avallone or Paul Joseph Watson videos about things such as the European Union or social justice warriors, third wave feminists, particularly Big Red and, all those other morons who I wouldn't mention, otherwise I would probably get brain cancer. So, I think the proper place to start would be the motive behind this. What's the idea behind doing this? Alright? So, the globalists here, they're the sort of people who are greedy for power. They have an insatiable lust for power. And they've seen an opportunity in the West, because the West is rich in culture, in economy. It's basically rich in almost everything. And what the globalists want to do is they want to control that wealth and strength. But they don't have to control the culture, because culture isn't something they can so easily manipulate, at least not culture that has been firmly established on solid foundations. So, what they've done is they've encouraged this stupid, leftist, politically correct, safe space needing policy, this sort of culture, sterile culture, which is supposed to demoralize the West. That's stage one of their plan, to demoralize the West through political correctness, social Marxism, cultural Marxism, which can demoralize the West, which, as you have seen in Europe, has caused the birth rate to plummet and a lot of Europeans to sadly lose confidence in their culture. As a European myself, I truly feel for the Europeans who have seen their culture being torn down, or at least partially torn down, by these cultural Marxists, feminists, and social justice warriors who say that we're responsible for colonialism, imperialism, and practically everything else in the world. We see it happening every day with these racists who race bait white people, or these feminists who push division between women and men, while particularly discriminating against men simply because they are men. And this is where the second part of the plan comes in. What these globalists are now doing is they're trying to replace Western culture with a much more primitive and savage one, such as Islam. And look, I'm not trying to overgeneralize with Muslims or anything else like that, but I'm focusing primarily on what's happening in Europe with the migration crisis. The US is excluded because they actually have a sane government which implements strong immigration laws. But unfortunately, those countries are in the minority in Europe. With the globalist European Union trying to tighten its grip as much as it can, yeah, things haven't been going too well. With millions of migrants flooding into Europe in the past few years, things have gone downhill, right down into the toilet. Well, this has been partially as a result of, well, mass immigration, which has been pushed by the European Commission, which is the head of the European Union. And what they're trying to do is get Europe's birth rate up. But unfortunately, instead of doing, limited skilled immigration, which could actually really legitimately help Europe, no, they're bringing in people who can't speak the European languages, are uneducated, unable to work, and follow a primitive belief system which is completely incompatible with those of Europe. Well, this plan has gone on well throughout its first stage and part of the second stage, but I have very good news. And I probably told you this before in one of my earlier videos about how the European Union is falling apart, that there has recently been a huge anti-establishment revolution, both in the USA and particularly in the eastern part of Europe. What's happened lately is that right-wing political parties in Europe, primarily, I'm focusing on Europe here, they've gained enormous support. We have Alternative for Deutschland in Germany, we have the Sweden Democrats in Sweden, and recently I've heard that in Slovenia, an anti-immigration party came to power. While I do believe that some sort of immigration should exist, it shouldn't be the type of immigration that is being pushed by the European Union. And with the National Front in France having gained huge ground from its rival, it's really given a good sign for the future of Europe. And what I think is that Europe is finally beginning to open its eyes and see what the globalists are trying to do. for feminists and social justice warriors, this is a disaster. But for me, I'm smiling like crazy, and I'll be sleeping like a baby tonight because I know that these guys, the bad guys, the lefties, are not going to win because the Western world will never collapse. And that I can promise them. And anyway, with a population of over 500 million people, which, luckily, a majority of which are European, many people are beginning to think about the future of Europe. They're thinking about how could this immigration impact us? What could happen? What are these Muslims actually doing to Europe? And luckily, despite massive censorship and propaganda pushed by the European Union and the globalist organizations, the tide of the people, the voting rights of the people, and the sheer strength of unity will not be suppressed. Because in the European Union, this means that they will lose power and they will not be able to take control for the West. And personally, as an ethnic European, I think that's a great thing. Because Europe will live on. The mother of Western civilization will live on. And so will the United States, and so will the rest of the world. Well, this has been an interesting video. Please give it a like, comment below, and subscribe to my channel for more videos every week, hopefully. This is Pioneer Productions, over and out.